Everybody is seated now. So let me make a couple of housekeeping announcements before I get down. One is that there will be about 13 ministers today, and there will be about 10 secretaries to Government of India. So there's an interaction session with the secretaries from 7 to 8. You can ask them any question you feel like. I'll moderate that session, but the question is basically meant for all of you to clear your doubts on any issues that you may have. That's number one. Number two is that there'll be, the Prime Minister has asked his entire cabinet virtually to join today, and the Prime Minister himself will be joining. The PM will be joining at 9 p.m., close to about 9 p.m. And he'll be sitting on one table, but he'll move subsequently from table to table. And when he moves from table to table, I would request that just vacate one of the chairs so that he can sit and interact with all of you. You know, young entrepreneurs normally keep occupying their chairs. And founders of startups, are not adventurous enough. So I would just request that please make sure that the PM sits down when he moves from table to table. The third is that, the finance minister will come in and he will speak for a brief while, but then all of you have the opportunity to grill him as well right after his session. Now, this entire event actually has been driven personally by the Prime Minister. He wants a lot of interaction with young entrepreneurs and young startups. And this will be followed by another event on 21st, 22nd, which NITI is driving. This is quite a unique moment for all of us. I think, to my mind, in India's history, this is a very rare moment when young, progressive, dynamic people have assembled in one room. One room, not to think about your immediate concern, which most of us do, about your immediate business or about your immediate profession. The task here is much larger than this. And I think the Prime Minister wants a very, very professional working session. That's why we've broken you up into 6 groups. We've given you the broad themes on which you will discuss. We've put very young professionals, and we've put our policy planning specialists. They will work with you, but they will ensure that this is your presentation, not NITI Aayog's, and their intention will be just to lead you on. He wants a lot of fresh ideas. The Prime Minister wants a lot of young, fresh ideas. They can't be hackneyed ideas. They should please bring in a lot of young ideas, because he wants to see what you people can bring to the table as far as the government is concerned. So this should be actually, when you make that presentation tomorrow, day after, the Prime Minister will not be sitting on the dais. He'll be sitting downstairs, and each group, there'll be 6 people, one presenter who will make the presentation, and 5 other people from that group, and each group will be open to question answers. So there will be question answers, and that 6 people from that group will have to respond to those queries. And based on what transpires tomorrow, the intention of the government is to see what all we can tweak as far as existing issues are concerned, as far as existing policies are concerned, and what are the issues where we need to take up issues with the Government of India and the states. So we will push for policy changes based on your inputs. That's the objective. So kindly utilize these sessions in a very, very professional working way. You will have many cabinet ministers, you will have Prime Minister coming in and moving from table to table. Please don't use the opportunity to start taking selfies. Or, you're most welcome. There'll be a photographer to take group photographs, which will make them all available to you. But the PM wants that also, the dinner, 13 ministers, it's never happened before. They'll all be seated with you. All the leading ministers of this government will be all seated with you. Please try, and if you feel there's anything which is a hurdle, please use that opportunity to change the mindset. So this is an opportunity. I just will quickly take you, because the PM wanted us to give you a broad overview on which, which can give you a broad perspective. We are growing at about 7.5% per annum, but there are two development narratives as far as this country is concerned. One is that we are a fast-growing, vibrant economy, that amongst the large economies, we are the fastest growing. We've taken several measures, ease of doing business, a lot has been done. We've created a sense of competition among states. We've opened up our FDI regime in many ways, but there is a second narrative, and that is this story of India is a story of jobless growth. And, when we look at labor statistics, these statistics on jobless growth is essentially based on a Labor Bureau Board's statistics, which is started in about 2008, 2009, when there was an economic downturn in Europe, which actually that sample excludes about 98.6% of Indian enterprises. It's based on a survey of 10,600 enterprises, having more than 10 hands with power and 20 hands without power. India's story is essentially of MSME and informal growth. What can we do to enhance the size and scale of our manufacturing? Now, the government has done several things to bring in vibrancy of Indian economy, but there are various challenges which I'll come to. There's been a big jump in the last 3 years in road constructed and awarded. Number of roads completed has gone up by 164%, number of roads awarded up by 252%. Additional habitation connected, massive jump, 52% increase, almost 11,641 habitations have been connected. This has been amongst the best performance on these metrics in history of railways, 17% increase in new lines, electrification 46% increase. There's been a big jump in terms of airports, 39% increase from financial year 15 in terms of the passengers being carried by airlines in India. In terms of port capacity also, we've added the highest ever capacity, 7% increase. Power, very unparalleled, 5x growth in terms of village electrification. 18,542 villages have been electrified. Big jump in terms of cumulative installed capacity for renewable energy. Many of you in the energy sector would be keeping track of this. Increased solar capacity installation, a big jump in cumulative wind capacity installation. And in terms of digital access and adoption, there's been a massive jump. 50% year-on-year increase, 142% year-on-year increase in mobile data consumption. But India is today the biggest country, is the highest amount of data consumption, and 200% year-on-year increase in terms of the digital wallets per internet users. There's been a very substantial flow of credit to micro-entrepreneurs. Mudra loans have grown, almost 7.36 crore loans, small ticket loans, but big jump in terms of Mudra loan. Almost 78% of these are to women enterprises. There's a number of new enterprises which have availed of these loans. In each one of the categories, the number of new enterprises which have availed of these loans is quite high. The credit guarantee for MSE, which was where the corpus was increased from 2,500 crore to 7,500 crores, has seen a huge jump. 58% increase in terms of credit facilities. Rural livelihood mission, women self-help groups, we almost have 60 lakh household benefits which have benefited. Sensex is high, which is not a major indicator, but it's had a major growth, and Indian stock market is outperforming emerging and developing markets. There's been a very robust growth in auto production. There's been a big jump in healthcare, one of the largest market in terms of revenue and employment. Similar robust growth trends in other sectors as well, in terms of electronics, in terms of retail industry. CapEx by government has been high. It's very high. It's almost 62% higher than what used to be there in previous years. Now, many people will say that it's an advantage, but to my mind, government spending and doing so much of infrastructure is not a good sign. It can bring in huge inefficiencies on a later date, but that's something for you people to debate and discuss on how to bring PPP back in infrastructure sector. Now, CapEx to total expenditure has improved for both center and states. The quality of government spending has improved. The capex to GDP has also improved for both center and states. In the last 3 years, government has made investment worth about 19.5 lakh crores. There's been a quantum jump in rural housing. You would see this massive, massive spurt. The pace of creation of rural housing under the scheme has tripled from about 10 lakh in 2013-14 to 32 lakhs. So there has been a strengthening of the safety net. If you look at Manrega, it's seen a massive growth in terms of from 2014-15 to 2016-17. So Manrega has seen a big jump in terms of allocations. There are some other indirect evidence of creation of jobs. So if you look at Employees Provident Fund active members, we've had 1 crore additional live members, EPF accounts created in the last 3 years, 30% increase. If you look at ESI numbers, increase of about 1.15 crores. Total number of insured persons, this is a 59% increase over the last 3 years. If you look at national pension scheme, and if you look at where mandatory national pension scheme people have taken mandatory one, there's the voluntary one as well, the Atal pension scheme, but the mandatory one, if you look at it, there's a 165% growth. Also, in terms of job creation, the nature of India's economy is changing, and therefore, if you look at it, Uber has created close to 400,000 self-employment opportunities. And these are not just drivers, these are people who own cars. Ola has created much more, 650,000 employment opportunities. But there are huge challenges for India, and if you look at the challenges, we must look at what is happening in India. The infant mortality rates are very high. And unless India averages 41 out of 1,000, and unless the red portion, the red part of India, in both infant mortality and maternal mortality, where India's average in maternal mortality is 167. Now the green portion does well, the yellow does all right, but the red portion is very bad performance. And unless and until the red doesn't turn into green, or yellow in the interim phase, it'll be very difficult for India to improve on, and that's why India's position in Human Development Index is extremely poor. It's 131. So we need to improve infant mortality, maternal mortality. If you look at where states stand in terms of health, the doctors' density is extremely poor in the red portion of India. And these red parts of India, that is the eastern and the northern part of India, is what is keeping India back. And unless and until we don't, you have the great, you have this great reminder of what has happened in Gorakhpur, 63 children dying. So the doctors' density, the bed density, extremely poor in the northern part of India. So the southern part of India does well, the western part of India does well, the northern part of India holds India back. If you look at education, the reading comprehension, a class 5 student not being able to do class 2 is addition, subtraction, or not being able to do read his mother tongue class 2. Again, reading comprehension, the red part of India does extremely poorly. In mathematics, even a state like Kerala, which is rated very high in terms of education, has done very badly in maths. And that is that a class 5 student is not able to do addition and subtraction. So if you look at India's average in terms of reading comprehension and maths is extremely poor, around 48%. If you look at dropout rates, and we looked at 100 districts which India must transform, and the red portions of India are which is holding India back. So these 100 districts where the dropout rate of elementary level is very high, you look at people-teacher ratio, it's directly correlated. The people-teacher ratio is extremely poor. If you look at the annual health survey composite index, the red portion of India is completely holding India back in health standards. And this, if you try and look at the unconnected, which to my mind is very critical, road connectivity to districts which are performing very badly in India, the road connectivity is very poor. So the red areas where there's no connectivity of roads. And when you combine health, education, and roads, you get these districts, and they are actually about 200 odd districts of India. We've said 100 when we look at education, health, maternal mortality, and all that, but when you combine all of them together, you get about almost 203 districts of India, which keep India holding back. And therefore, when you look at this, 100 districts which India must transform this year, but if you look at a breakdown of all this, you see what happens district-wise. 53 districts of UP, 36 districts of Bihar, 27 districts of Madhya Pradesh, 17 districts of Jharkhand, 11 districts of Rajasthan out of this, and 211 districts which India radically needs to uplift from here. And therefore, our view is that the focus has to be on many of these social indices. And our view is that it will be very difficult to bring in a huge efficiency without private sector participation in many of these areas. And young people like you need to change, radically change and transform. It's not about just creating wealth. It's not just about India growing at 7. It's not possible for India to grow at those high rates for long periods of time till we don't transform ourselves in maternal mortality, infant mortality, in our efficiency of education, and so on. So we are focusing on several areas, long-term vision. We've looked at a 15-year vision. We've looked at a strategy of 7 years. We've looked at an action plan for 3 years. We've looked at several things. We are working with states to really transform this into cooperative federation, a vast number of initiatives across several areas, agriculture, land leasing. Our belief is that we need to make the states compete with each other. My experience on ease of doing business, where we ranked states 2 years back, Gujarat came number 1, but next year Gujarat was dethroned and Telangana and Andhra came number 1 and 2. But the good thing was that states like Jharkhand and Chhattisgarh did extremely well. So in similar kind of competition, we are trying to create in agriculture. We are trying to create a water index where we are ranking states on how they manage their water. We have created an index, and our team led by Maninder has done a lot of good work in terms of creating real-time data on where states is so that people can work on real-time data and then capture the delta, the change during the course of the year, so that states know how they are moving up or down, or water, or in education. And in many of these things, we've tried to push for, we faced a lot of attack, but we've tried to push for better health PPP in several areas, cardiovascular diseases, pulmonary and cancer. And we've tried to support many of these states, but our view is that it's essentially a very good partnership between government and business, which will make all the difference to India. And therefore, we want to capture this young energy and dynamism, which all of you represent. And so you'll bring that flavor of vibrancy and dynamism. With these few words, I think we'll break. Please get into your session. I wanted to finish this by 5 o'clock so that we are bang on time. 5 to 7, please, exactly bang on time. 5 to 7 is your time today. 7 o'clock, we'll go down. 7 o'clock onwards, we'll get into you'll come back here, we'll get into a session where you can shoot anything to the secretaries. And then 7 o'clock to 8 o'clock, 7 to 8, and then 8 o'clock, VC NITI Aayog will speak for 10 minutes. Then we get in with Finance Minister who will speak. And then the ministers will join you. We'll move downstairs for dinner where ministers will join. And then at about 9 o'clock, the Prime Minister will join. So I'll just make this announcement. This is a strong working session. Your inputs will get reflected tomorrow. Please work hard. Please make sure that your presentation makes a difference to India. And therefore, the first hall, Conference Hall 1, is about Incredible India, soft power. Conference Hall 2 is education and skill development. Conference Hall 3 is health and nutrition. Lecture Hall 1 is New India by 2022. Lecture Hall 2 is Digital India. Lecture Hall 3 is Energizing a Sustainable Tomorrow. So we break. I'll repeat that. Soft power is Conference Hall 1, Education, Skill Development, Conference Hall 2, Health and Nutrition, Conference Hall 3, New India by 2022, Lecture Hall 1, Digital India, Lecture Hall 2, Energizing a Sustainable Tomorrow, Lecture Hall 3. So we'll break and kindly break out from there at 7 p.m., reassemble here today. If you want to work, you can work post-dinner as well. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
Sir, just to add, the conference halls are on the ground floor, and the lecture halls are on the first floor. Just to